Why starting a cannabis brand is safer than starting a cannabis license. As I've mentioned in past videos, I've had one of the first state distribution licenses, so I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of things transpire in the license market here in California. And one of the things that I saw in the early days, both before 2018 when legalization happened, leading up to it, and after, is a rush for everybody to obtain their license. And what happened is it fragmented the market. There's tons of distribution licenses, tons of manufacturing licenses, tons of cultivation licenses, and only a few retail licenses. So we'll leave retail out of this for a moment. Just talk about the wholesale side, the wholesale supply chain, both cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution. And I'll do other videos more in the direct license types and some of the characteristics. But for today's video, I'm going to explain about the fragmentation of what that caused and why that's actually a good thing if you're a brand, and an even better thing for a consumer. So as I was mentioning, in the early days of cannabis legalization here in California, there was a rush to get it licensing, and it fragmented the market. So think of it being 1,000 restaurants in your town and 200 people population. So on any given night, you can't even fill up with one person all the restaurants. And that's kind of what it's like with California. There's been so much overproduction that there's not even enough consumption in the state. I think it was something like there's 5 or 6 million pounds grown and we only consume 2 million. So the point is there's a lot of oversupply. There's more supply than there is demand in the licensed sector out here in California. So what that caused is an oversupply and a flood. And it's forced these fragmented operators to go out of business, to shut down. And there's a consolidation happening right now. And so what we learned is that owning the license doesn't matter. Owning the license is actually a burden. There's taxes, there's liabilities, there's audits, there's employees, there's OSHA, there's regulations, there's code inspections. You have to pay the rent both before you get the license, and even if you're making money, if you're not making money, if you are operating, if you're not operating, you still got to pay that rent. And cannabis rent, at least out here in California, is much higher than just any regular commercial rent. And this is probably the case in most other places in the country. And this is an issue that we'll see for a while. And it's unfortunate that cannabis gets treated like that, and we're getting taxed in all these different areas significantly more than any other traditional business. Everyone complains about the high prices and the low sales and, illicit sales and all this. However, we're being faced with these extremely, triple, quadruple, even 5 times the operational costs than a traditional business. And this is both coming down to all the heavy restrictions that we're faced with, that we have to comply with, along with the taxes, along with, the overhead and the risk. All these things add up to a very slim profit margin for most operators. So that's the picture that's painted for the license holders. Now, the brands, on the other hand, the brands are almost the solutions to the license holders, because if those license holders aren't doing business, they don't have the money flowing to pay their rent, to pay their employees, to pay their license fees, to pay their taxes. So what we're seeing is a desperation amongst these operators to get consistent business. And one of these best ways, especially for the manufacturers, is through packaging. And packaging is essential need for the licensed supply chain, because you can't just sit there and package your brand stuff in your living room or something, or pay your family to package it at the kitchen table for you. So you need to do it in a licensed facility with employees of the license on payroll, getting paid tax, getting paid Social Security, Medicare, all these things. So then it needs to be compliance tested, tamper evidence sealed, held in quarantine, transported through the licensed supply chain, through the licensed distributors, through the distribution vehicles that are registered to the license holders. So all these things are steps that you can't cut these corners. You can't do the home version of it, the DIY version. There is none. It's just, this is commercial cannabis out here. And in order to operate in it, you have to be up to these standards. So what I've noticed over the years, and like I said, I've had multiple distribution licenses. I have a manufacturing license at my current place with the distro license. And then I've also had a cultivation license, which I've recently gotten out of. The best licenses I see that make most sense is, if you only had a choice to get one, is your distribution license, because it gives you the most flexibility. You can work with growers, you can work with manufacturers, you can work with retailers, you can do transportation, you can do testing. So you can be nimble. You can move around. You do sales. That's my thing. That's my background, but it's not for everybody. I have friends, even my brother, he runs a licensed grow. He loves growing. He loves being in the room, growing the plant. He can make more probably working at a restaurant or a store or something like that. But he's, in the grow room dealing with challenges every day because he loves it. And that's not my thing. I enjoy sales, I enjoy business, entrepreneurship, all these things. So the distro license is more of my realm. And with the distro license, you can also operate a brand under it, as well as the distro license in California, at least being the least amount of overhead. You don't have to have a large building. You can have very small requirements on that. You have a basic distribution van with a cage built into it and a few other requirements. Your employees are very low. There's very low overhead on a distro. It's the least overhead license that I can think of right now, I'd say, because you don't have to have many employees. Yeah. I can't think of another license that would be less to operate. And I could be mistaken, but just off the top of my head, a distro license is going to be the least amount to operate and even hold actively. This could change in other states because they might have certain clauses where you have to have a certain amount of space or business in a certain region. The rent is high there and things like that. So each state's going to be different, but I'm talking about California here. Distro license is the most nimble license to have. The others are going to either weigh you down or just become dead weight. Back to the reason for having a brand. You don't have to own the license for the brand. You can be affiliated with the license. You can be partnered with the license. You can be an owner in the license, and it does make it easier to get the brand off the ground. But there's ways to do the paperwork that you can become part of the license as the brand owner through a different type of licensing where you license your IP. So there is a way where if you're not affiliated with the license, you can form a partnership and actually license the IP of your brand to the cannabis license holder and get around the ownership laws like that. And this is perfectly legal to do. And this is how a lot of the big brands do it, especially ones that don't want to directly touch cannabis, meaning they don't want to be the ones producing it, growing it, packaging it, selling it. They just want to do the branding and the marketing. The reason why it's smart to just focus on the branding and marketing is because you don't have to worry about the costs of the employees, of holding the licenses, of paying the rent for the facility, paying the taxes, dealing with the inspections, dealing with the license renewals, having the lawyers, all these different things. So for the brand, I should backtrack there. You do have to have a lawyer at some steps of the way, and you do have to have a good CPA, good accountant, as well as you want to have a bookkeeper of some sort for your ongoing daily expenses and operations. But this is the case with any business. Any business, you're going to need a lawyer, you're going to need an accountant, you're going to need a bookkeeper. So if you're doing proper business, then you should be able to understand that this is part of doing business anyway. Outside of those similarities, you're not going to have to deal with all the headaches of owning and operating a cannabis license, or worse, multiple cannabis licenses. So you let the growers grow the weed, the manufacturers package it, produce it, make the carts, make the pre-rolls, make the edibles, whatever the products is that's going in your brand, and then let the distributor handle the transportation and the invoicing to the stores. And then you as the brand is just going to handle your branding, your marketing, and your brand's fulfillment, in the sense that you're providing the feeling that consumer has when they interact with your brand, when they even think about your brand. And that's your responsibility as the brand owner, is to provide that experience. And this is done both through social media, through online, through customer interaction, both at the store, at events, putting on contests, sweepstakes, all these different things. These are different ways to stay engaged with your community, with your following. And these are the people that make your brand. It's so abstract that people look over it and they think, oh, we just got to go to a few events here or there. We got to print up some t-shirts or make a website. And, they leave it at that. And that's why so many brands fail, because they're doing 40% of what it takes to really be 100% brand. Do what it takes, understand what it takes, and really put those pieces in play. Focus on being the brand. Let the operators focus on operating the licenses. And then you get your brand out through partnering with those licenses. And you let the licenses do each function of the supply chain. And your brand, in the end, is put out in front of the retailers. And the consumers come into the retail store and they automatically want to buy your brand because you've done your job as far as branding and driving marketing out to the consumers to get them to drive the consumers to the retail store. And so that's what this whole thing is. Marketing is for your consumers, selling is for the producers. So the producers want to produce sales and the consumers want to consume. And the consumers are going to consume what's being marketed. And marketing is directly for your consumers. And this is a two-way street. People feel as if it's evil or if it's bad, but marketing is actually making the proper demographic of the population aware of the product and or solution that you're offering to them. And this is done through marketing. And effective marketing is going to make it feel to the consumer that they're not being sold to. It's going to make it feel to them that there's a solution being presented to them and they value that. And so it's when you scroll through Instagram and you find an ad. I found the ad for the people editing this video through scrolling through Instagram. I wasn't like, man, these ads keep popping up, get pissed. I was like, man, I actually saved money in my business and my operations more than 50% because I found a quality service at a better price. And that was done through ads. And so as a consumer, I was glad that I came across that ad. And that's how good marketing is done. Spend your time on branding and marketing and let the professionals operate the cannabis licenses. And then you build out your brand, grow your brand. And then by the time you get a big brand growing with big brand presence, you have the power to now negotiate better deals. And you most likely have an accumulation of money to be able to go partner or buy your licenses that you then need to actually grow and expand. So there does come a point where it becomes more efficient to own your own licenses because you can get your scale down. But at that point, it's going to require so much operations that you need to be able to handle that. So until you grow to that point, it's best to just start your brand, work with other people's licenses, grow your brand to a point, and then you can even use your reputation to partner with licenses that may or may not be doing too well. And you can actually help improve their business, gain some equity from them, maybe not even put up some money. All you got to do is provide sales solutions and provide consistent revenue. And, that's value enough to receive some equity. So now you are an owner in these licenses. You didn't have to go out and buy them. You still don't have to operate them. That would be one of the best deals as a brand. That's something that you're thinking you need to do is get the license before you start the brand. That's what this video is about, is to show you could be starting your brand right now and you could be building that and you could be growing it to the point to where you're then negotiating deals to obtain your own license. And what happens on the flip side, if you go after your license first, you're going to be dealing with all this headache, stress, pressure, cost, tons of expense, tons of compliance, tax, inspections. You get the picture. Would you rather do that, or would you rather focus on going to events, doing your merch, doing your branding, making your social media presence? These are all consistent things. Developing your product line, finding the right manufacturers, finding the right cultivators to work with, dialing in those functions of the supply chain, dialing in your genetics. These are all things you should be focusing on as the brand. Let the operators focus on the operations. So that's it for this video. I have the branding course coming out in 2023. Go to highchris.com, put your email address in. We'll let you know when that comes out. It's going to be a direct coaching course live with me on a weekly ongoing basis. And I'm going to walk you through all the aspects of getting your brand developed and then getting it launched. And so this is going to require the dedication and the commitment to you. So this is only for people that are actually at the level to be able to do this. And this isn't for everybody. If you watch the videos on my channel, you can get a lot of information from there as well to start growing yourself into becoming capable of launching and growing a licensed cannabis brand. And that's when you'd want to sign up for this coaching course. So go to the website, highchris.com, check out everything on there. Check out the other videos on my playlist. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.